Welcome to the midweek devotion from the Methodist Church in Littleton, Illinois. You might notice that I'm not in Littleton, Illinois at the moment. Actually, I'm out, and I don't know if you can see that Jeep taking off now. It's just aired down its tires and ready for rough road. I'm out in the desert of Arizona next to Four Peaks Mountain, and there's the truck that we've got. And what we're going to do is try, if the weather will hold up, to drive as high as we can up there and then park the truck and then hike as far as we can above that. So in the meantime, while we're doing it, I'm going to take you along with us on the little journey and also share with you what's kind of on my mind right now about the Christian faith. So let's get going, shall we? We made it as far as the road would go. We parked at a trailhead, and we're not alone. There's a Jeep Wrangler and a Toyota 4Runner parked on that trail with us. But I don't see anybody, and it's a pretty big mountain. The last time I was on this trail, I brought my dad with me, and Dad stayed down at the parking lot. We kept on going, and that time it looked beautiful, like a forest, but since that time there's been a forest fire. So doesn't look quite the same as it did a few years ago. I want to talk to you about an issue today that I really don't have a good answer for. And if you struggle with it, you might not have a good answer for it either. But maybe I can help you, and maybe you can help me, and maybe write some comments down below this video to put your 2 cents in on the issue. And the issue I'm going to talk about is out of the ordinary, out of the box spiritual experiences. Recently, I talked about Thomas Aquinas and how he was one of the greatest theologians and possibly one of the most influential theologians of the past 1,000 years, and how within a year of the time that he was killed, he had an experience that he couldn't really describe. And he didn't talk much about it, but he did say that after what he had seen, all of his writings seemed like straw. I don't know what the experience is. Francis of Assisi was known to have several unusual experiences with God. Paul, the apostle, was on the road to Damascus and saw a great light and had an experience. And all through the history of Christianity, such experiences, while not being common, have not been uncommon either. And there's been a sprinkling of unusual spiritual experiences. So it's possible that you or someone listening to this video might have had an experience of some sort that you don't know what to do with. I may not be able to help you with that, but at least we can bring it out and find a place to address it and talk about it. There once was a man who was in a monastic garden, walking through the flowers and the landscaping and praying, and he sat down on a rock. And as he sat on the rock, he just sat there in the quiet. And the quiet just seemed all-encompassing. And next to his head, a little bird came by to a flower, and close to his hand there came a little hummingbird, and he was just almost sure that hummingbird would land on his finger. And while this was happening, and he was in this quiet state of prayer, all of a sudden, it seemed like all of the earth had been rolled away, or everything that he knew, everything that he saw, everything that was physical that he touched was rolled away like a scroll, or like the front cover of a book that's opened. And inside of that, he just saw the pure goodness of God and realized that everything else was a facade. He didn't know what to do with that. He didn't know how to describe it. He didn't know how to explain it. For the next several weeks, he tried to tell one of his friends about it, but he didn't tell anybody. And for the next several weeks, he just kind of marveled in this experience and wondered what it meant. And then finally, he slowly came back to normal. There are just an awful lot of people that don't believe in anything supernatural or any spiritual experience. So those people, if you try to tell them a story like this, they're probably going to think you're lying, or you're crazy, or you're high, or you're drunk, or hallucinating of some sort. They just are not going to have it inside of their worldview to accept the possibility that something like that could happen. However, that leaves you with a quandary. You don't want to be thought of to be a liar or crazy or high or something like that, and it seems like it's a waste to tell them. And sometimes it's intimidating to have an experience, that people are going to raise their eyebrows and whisper behind your back. So what do you do? Well, I apologize for doing all of this puffing and panting, but as long as I'm going up the trail and not down the trail, I think I'm going to be doing a lot of puffing and panting. I think I can see the tree line not too far in front of me up there, but there's still, of course, a lot of forest down here that has been hit by the forest fire. Okay, on with my story. So if you have an unusual spiritual experience, one danger is you might feel intimidated by people that think you're making it up or hallucinating. Another danger is that all intensely personal spiritual experiences such as that run with them and a danger of theological sloppiness. That is, nearly all of us, if we base our views, our spirituality, on just an experience without anything backing it up, nearly all of us will flavor that experience with part of who we are. I think I'm going to keep on going. I heard a preacher one day preach a sermon, and she, when she started the sermon, as the text of her sermon, she said she was quoting from a revelation that God gave to her on a certain date. And so that's what she's preaching from. That is always theologically suspect. If you have some sort of unique or slightly different take on something, before you hold on to that, you always need to bounce that off of other people who are theologically astute. And it may be you're a little afraid to do that because it might pop your bubble. Or it may be you're afraid the person that's theologically astute will think you're crazy, not hallucinating, but just just really off the mark. So what do you do? Well, I'm not exactly above the tree line, but I'm getting towards breaking out. The forest fire took out most of these, but these weren't very big trees anyway. They were mostly scrub and kind of spaced far apart, and I think right up there would be the tree line. I'm not sure, but I think right over there I see Christina and Nala. And right up there is the summit of Brown Mountain, which is the highest of the four peaks. I think about 8,000 feet. So I don't know what I am now, 6.5, maybe 7,000, something like that. And over that way is the sun. I see the shadows getting long. It's actually not that long till sunshine or till sunset. So I think I will just take a few more steps up and then start heading back so I can get back at least to the truck by the time it gets dark. The third troublesome area that I can think of is that some people will not think you're crazy. Some people will think you're ready for a halo, that God's done something special, and they're all too ready for a new movement of God, maybe too ready, to where they're almost willing to manufacture one, or it might encourage them to claim more than they've actually experienced in their life. And personally, I'm not sure, but I don't think there's any greater sin than to try to manufacture a movement of God. I say that because I think in the Old Testament of Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, and how there was a great movement of God on the day that they, set aside and dedicated the temple. The next day, they tried to redo that, and they were killed by God. And I think of Ananias and Sapphira in the New Testament, who also sold some of the money and or sold some of their property and inflated how much they made and said they were giving all this whopping gift to the church and to God, and they really didn't, and they paid for it with their lives. And I kind of think that it may not be the worst sin, but it certainly is a biggie. I mean, we have lists of sins that we think of sometimes, and we think, oh, this is a sin, that's a sin. But trying to manufacture a movement of God that God didn't institute, we sort of let that one by. And so if you start telling or elaborating or sensationalizing an experience that you've had, a religious experience, then there is this danger that others will try to catch on and add to it and make a movement out of something that may not be God moving. So what do you do? I really don't know. But I will tell you this, whatever you do, it needs to be bathed in prayer and covered with humility. You're not a super Christian because you had some sort of ecstatic experience. Here we are in Four Peaks Wilderness, where I never made the summit, but I made it to where it is beautiful. May God bless you this week. May God give you wisdom and love and courage and humility.